The next article I wanted to look at is titled Deanna Lorraine Complains That Offering Different Seating Sections to Vaccinated Spectators is Just Like the Holocaust and Jim Crow. This one is actually pretty contentious. This was a really big deal when this came out. It came out just like a week or two ago, and a bunch of other really far right extreme representatives like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert have been spreading this same idea that it's just like the Holocaust to sit in a different seating section because you have chosen not to take a vaccine. So let's give this article a read and see what it says. This is by Kyle Mintila on rightwingwatch.org. QAnon conspiracy theorist Deanna Lorraine appeared on the Stu Peters show last Thursday, where she railed against proposals to offer separate seating sections for vaccinated and non-vaccinated spectators at sporting events and other large gatherings, predictably likening it to Nazi Germany. Lorraine, who's been an ardent COVID-19 denier and tireless anti-vaxxer from the very start of the pandemic, complained that offering separate seating sections for those who've been vaccinated is no different than Jim Crow. I actually, before we watch the video that goes along with this, I wanted to watch another clip by Deanna Lorraine just to kind of give you guys an idea of who this is, because I have covered her a few times before. This is not the first time I've talked about her. So the first video that I wanted to watch of Lorraine, this video came out, I believe, January 7th. It came out the very next day after the January 6th insurrection, which I am aptly naming 1/6, similar to 9/11. So this was immediately after the 1/6 insurrection, and she basically came out and defended herself and her decision to march into the Capitol and flagrantly break the law. So let's watch.
And for you to sit there and buy into this MSM narrative, hook, line, and sinker, that we were so inappropriate and so embarrassing to you guys, and you are disgusted by our display.
Yeah, obviously there was some backlash coming at the time already. Basically, the entire right wing, who wasn't saying exactly what she's saying here, they were silent, pretty much. And the left wing were the only people with voices in this, and they were decrying this. They were saying this is evil, this is sick, this is a terrorist act, which it was. So the only voices you heard for the days following this were oppositional voices saying that what happened on 1/6 was evil. It was the same thing with the George Floyd stuff. After the George Floyd stuff happened, after George Floyd was killed, there was complete silence from the right. They didn't say a fucking word. That's how propaganda works. None of these people said a word. They didn't dip their toes in. Ben Shapiro didn't say anything. Nobody said anything. They let this situation play out for a few days. They kind of gathered their wits about him, came up with a good strategy, and then they assassinated the guy's character. They attacked him and they said, he wasn't a good guy and all that same shit. They had to take a few days to come up with a strategy to propagandize. And that's what was happening at this time when this video was taking place. The Republicans weren't sure what angle they were going to take the 1/6 attack. So they were basically completely silent, and the only voice Deanna Lorraine heard was the voice of opposition saying that it was evil.
Never a real patriot. You should be ashamed of yourself. How dare you throw these patriots that have been there all day yesterday and fighting the real commies? We're the ones at war fighting for you guys. How dare you say that you're ashamed of us? What kind of a patriot are you?
So that's Deanna Lorraine. That was her position. Now, eventually, as time went on, she started to realize that Donald Trump was completely full of shit. Surprisingly, I honestly did not expect to find that from her. But she released a clip shortly after this. I think maybe it was late January when it originally came out, this clip of hers. She said that we were expecting, Trump to play this 5D chess move and all this stuff. Not once had that chess move ever been played. Not once had any of these predictions come true. I mean, she jumped ship on Trump, and I was genuinely surprised by that. Genuinely surprised. But, I mean, she's an InfoWars correspondent, obviously. You would think that she'd stand behind him. But she was a QAnoner originally. And as a QAnoner, she believed that Trump was something special. He had God's anointing. She gave up on the QAnon conspiracy stuff, I guess, and along with it, she gave up on Trump, apparently. So I don't know what her position is on Trump now. Maybe she's flip-flopped right back into loving the guy, but at one point, she was so fed up with this whole thing that she turned on Trump too. So anyways, this next clip came out just the other day, and this is the one that we were talking about in the article. So let's give this clip a watch and see what she had to say. This was her making an appearance on the Stu Peters show.
I'm going to start doing dividing up their sections of sporting events, churches, and other areas of public interest. And it's going to say vaccinated people or non-vaccinated people.
Yeah, so when you walk in, like the hostess used to ask you, smoking or non? Right. Now it's going to be this.
Hey, you know, that's probably a fair comparison, right? You want to take stupid fucking risks with your health? That's okay, but you're not going to take risks with other people's health. Unfortunately, as we know now, smoking, even secondhand smoke, is really, really dangerous and honestly shouldn't even be in the same restaurant. And we learned that and corrected the issue, so now there's just no smoking in public buildings, in most cases. I don't know that it's a federal rule, but most states have that rule anyways. So I feel that this is a pretty fair comparison, non-smoking or smoking sections of stadiums. But again, you can't be perfectly safe in the same stadium as somebody who is unvaccinated, right? You have to walk through the same doors. You have to use the same public restroom. You have to pass these people in the halls. They're still a danger to you and to themselves and to wider society. This isn't a perfect solution. But maybe it will act as an incentive for people to just go get fucking vaccinated. There are no excuses now. Just go do it, really. Biden is opening the country now, or encouraging people to open the country, and he's even encouraging people to stop using masks if they're vaccinated in some circumstances, right? That means you are fucked if you don't get a vaccine. You are the one who's at risk, not me. I'm vaccinated. You are only making this dangerous for yourself. Let's continue watching this.
Now is going to be vaccinated or non-vaccinated. And of course, we know because there's so many mindless sheeple out there that
I love the use of the term sheeple, unironically. She said that without a smile on her face. That's fucking awesome.
Vaccinated section is going to be a hell of a lot bigger than the non-vaccinated section, but that's how it's going to be. So sporting events, if you go to a baseball game, a football game, etc., you can expect to be put in a different section, whether you've been vaccinated or not. Same thing goes with churches. And I think that's even more sinister.
Okay, I don't know. The federal government has no control over this policy, right? They have zero control over this. So it's not the government enforcing this. If churches choose to do this, it means they're trying to make sure that people are protected and providing an incentive for others to just go get fucking vaccinated. It's free. Just go fucking do it. Seriously. What is wrong with you that you haven't gotten vaccinated yet? No excuse. Point is, it's the church's choice to do this. It's not the government. It's not nothing. It's just because people want to encourage their congregation or their fans or whatever to be safe. That's it. And they want to get back to fucking normal. I want to be able to go to a restaurant and not worry if I'm going to catch COVID and bring it back to my daughter or something anymore. I don't want to worry about that shit anymore. I currently feel I have to worry about it still because I can transmit it on my clothing and my hair and my hands. Kylie is not fully vaccinated. What happens if I go to the Met, the Metropolitan Museum of Art? Somebody there is a Trump supporter, refuses to wear a mask, refuses to get vaccinated, brings COVID in, touches all their fucking artifacts, get their grubby fingers all over everything. It transfers to my hands, and then my hands transfer it to Kylie. What happens? She gets sick. I want people to get vaccinated and take this shit seriously.
Goes with churches. And I think that's even more sinister, honestly, because, this is a place where there should be no division. You should be bringing people together, but they're going to be
I'm sorry. There are some things it's justified to divide people on some things. When it comes to the safety of the people around you, I'm okay with dividing people. I'm okay with separating them into vaccinated and non-vaccinated if it's for public health. Totally okay with me.
Vision. You should be bringing people together. But they're going to be pushing that in churches as well. Vaccinated section and then non-vaccinated pews.
Now, I haven't heard a word about this. It's totally possible she's just fabricating this right off the top of her fucking head. Would not. In fact, I'd be surprised if she wasn't, honestly. I don't know if this is even true or not. Leave it in the comments if you've heard of a church that has specifically said they're going to start segregating people into vaccinated and non-vaccinated, then let me know. Because by and large, churches in America have been in favor of not following safety guidelines, not getting vaccinated, not wearing masks, so on and so forth. I mean, there are some churches out there who are reasonable, some pastors who are actually intelligent and worried about their congregation, actually give a shit about the people that they're supposed to be trying to lead. I think the majority of the churches in America probably aren't like that, but I know there are some out there. What is she talking about? Which churches is she saying have announced they're going to do this? I don't know.
Actually okay with it because I don't really want to be hanging around these vaccinated people. All this
I think so too.
talk about
Oh, you guys ready for a conspiracy theory? I love it. Let's listen.
transmission and shedding and all of this other
Right.
stuff. I mean, this is a contagious vaccination. It's a self-spreading vaccination. They started talking about this many years ago, and it's
Many years ago, huh? Before the virus even existed, or before the vaccine even existed for this, they were talking about this. Fascinating.
now coming out. It's being exposed. They knew exactly what was going to happen, but yet pushed it on the American people anyway. And global.
You can just say whatever you fucking want on this channel, and it doesn't matter, can't you? Is this true, what they're saying? Let's find out. There's an article on Reuters. I mean, this is easily debunkable already, but we might as well read Reuters. It's one of the best news networks out there. Let me rephrase. It's one of the least biased news outlets out there. So let's give this a read and see what it says. Fact check: COVID vaccines do not shed from one person to another and then cause reproductive problems. That's actually the claim that's been going around. False claims that the coronavirus vaccines can be passed or shed from an immunized person to an unvaccinated woman and then somehow affect the woman's reproductive system are whipping around social media. Top experts agree that it is impossible for a person to transmit the vaccines to people they happen to be near, and for a woman to experience miscarriage, menstrual cycle changes, and other reproductive problems by being around a vaccinated person. Okay, so there are two sections to this. There is top medical experts agree that it's impossible for a person to transmit the vaccines to people they happen to be near. Part one. It's impossible to shed this, like they're saying. That's completely made up by conspiracy theorists. That's it. This is a conspiracy. Part two. There is no evidence that women experience menstrual cycle changes, miscarriage, or any other reproductive problem by being around a vaccinated person. Completely made up. There is no fact to be had here. This goes back to what I was saying earlier in the podcast. We live in separate realities from these people. We can't agree on what a fact is. How do you deal with this problem? How do you work with people who can't agree on reality? We live in like different fucking universes. How do you do this? Anyway, let's keep watching this clip from Deanna Lorraine. Now that we have hopefully thoroughly debunked their claim that you shed the vaccine, if that was actually true, why would we need to continue giving it to other people? It's just completely fucking nonsensical from the ground up.
And globally.
Right, exactly. Yeah, don't shed on me. I don't shed on me.
Yeah.
Instead of
Hashtag.
having we need to start having don't shed on me flags.
Yes,
going
exactly.
everywhere.
Exactly.
That's the
man.
new freedom.
Yeah, that's just, they're talking about how to formulate new propaganda. They just want to create these flags, these propagandistic flags, to be anti-vaccine even more. Why? What's the end goal here? It's like, If I sat down with these people and talked to them and showed them the evidence, unequivocally challenged their delusion, and pointed out, you're incorrect here. So the vaccine doesn't do that. Are you still okay with taking it? Would they say yes? I mean, I can't imagine that not one single fucking person in these people's lives have come along and challenged their batshit crazy ideas, right? Unless they've spent the past 10 years isolating anybody who would be willing to challenge those ideas. Like, I just don't fucking get it.
So I don't want to be hanging out with the vax anyways, but just imagine a year ago, did we ever think that this was going to happen? If we did think that it was going to happen, we were labeled conspiracy theorists.
Well, he just said a minute ago that this has been studied and known about for years, right? Didn't he just say that like 30 fucking seconds ago? And now she's sitting here saying, what if we knew this a year ago? Like, even the conversation that they're having together is nonsensical. Even this conversation.
But just imagine a year ago, did we ever think that this was going to happen? If we did think that it was going to happen, we were labeled conspiracy theorists with tinfoil hats. But imagine.
Oh, that's true. They are. They're conspiracy theorists with tinfoil hats.
What the Jews experienced, right? Again, we go back to the Holocaust where they had to show their papers, right? We had to show their papers. They had to wear the gold star. Isn't this eerily familiar to that, Stu?
No, it's not. It's not eerily familiar to being... What would bring somebody to say something like this? I'm telling you guys, we live in a different reality from these people. They have gone to the ultimate extreme. Hitler has always been used as an example of the pinnacle of evil. He is the worst person who has ever lived. He did the worst thing, and so on and so forth. Which, 100% agree with that. He is very evil, and he did do very evil things. But I wondered, who did people hold up as the pinnacle of evil before Hitler? I actually looked this up out of curiosity. Who was the Hitler of the 1900s, of the early 1900s, like 1910? Who did people say, you know, you were like if you were a truly evil person? And the answer is Pharaoh from Egypt. That's who they talked about for the most part. They would always say that he was the most evil person, and then Hitler came around, and we had a new prime example of somebody who was truly evil. So why is it that Deanna Lorraine is comparing herself to the pinnacle of victimhood, genuinely doing nothing wrong, like the Jews, being who they are, and being for it? Massive detention centers dedicated to massive amounts of people. How did she get to the point where she believes that she is in that position, the pinnacle? She is the victim of the pinnacle of evil. She believes being vaccinated for public safety is basically like Hitler. 6 million people. How did she get to that point? I'm telling you, we live in different realities from each other. The people on the outside of this bubble and the people on the inside. It's fucking bizarre. Let's keep listening.
We have to show our papers.
Yeah.
We have to show proof of vaccination, and it's going to be separating people from vaccinated versus unvaccinated. This is also back in the day where racism was paramount, and they had separate water fountains, separate schools, separate eating areas for blacks and whites. How is this any different?
They are desperately trying to make themselves into the ultimate victims. This is part of their propaganda campaign. They want people to view them, and they want to view themselves as the ultimate victim, in line with being for your ethnicity or for your religion. That's how they want people to view them, and that's how they view themselves. They're trying to program this viewpoint into people who are watching. It'd be one thing if it was just a single person saying this nutbaggery. It's not. For one thing, we've got Deanna Lorraine here, And then we've got this other dude over here on the left, Stu Peters. And then, on top of those two, it gets even worse. There's another clip I wanted to show you guys. Let's listen to this one. This is Marjorie Taylor Greene, Republican representative from the House.
Congresswoman, I've got to play you this. It's about 20 seconds or so. This is Nancy Pelosi today literally talking about this idea of segregation, like literally putting unvaccinated House members in a different area. Have a look at this.
This woman is mentally ill. You know, we can look back in a time in history where people were told to wear a gold star, and they were definitely treated like second-class citizens, so much so that they were put in trains and taken to gas chambers in Nazi Germany. And this is exactly the type of abuse that Nancy Pelosi is talking about.
Marjorie Taylor Greene, U.S. representative, congresswoman, believes that she is a Jewish person being dragged in chains to an execution chamber because she's being told to wear a mask and get vaccinated or sit on the other side of the house, one or the other. How do you get to the point where you believe this type of thing about yourself? She believes she is the pinnacle of a victim. It does not get more extreme than that. How do we deal with this problem? How do we deal with people who believe that they are being treated like Jews in Nazi Germany just because they don't want to get a vaccine? We have to start teaching critical thinking skills to kids in school, seriously. Or every kid that comes out of the fucking school is going to be susceptible to this BS.